Welcome, Murphy's Law Garage viewers. Today we install the magical long travel coilovers on the S650 Mustang. Only the second Mustang outside of Kelly Aiken's own personal shop car to get the long travel setup. Let's do it. Dang it. Hiya, folks. You might ask yourself, well, why, JB, would we put long travel coilovers on a Mustang? Isn't that a off-roading 4x4 thing? Haha, yes, but in this case, no. So it's really important on a car that needs to go really fast on a radial tire, or in my case, being an idiot on a hard tire, is keeping weight transfer where it belongs, and that is on the rear wheels. Now, on our last trip to the racetrack, whenever the car launched on the new Kelltrac's rear shocks, it got up on the tire real hard. It slacked out the front suspension. It rolled out the hole for a few feet, great, and then the nose fell down. I'll show you that here. So the problem with that is that if the nose dives right after applying the power and getting up on the tire, well, it unloads the tire, which results in the car chirping all the way down the track because it's already rolled its nose back down. What do the long travels do? The long travels ensure that the car stays up on the rear tire and doesn't drop the nose, and you can tune for that. You don't want to pop a wheelie. Not that the car is going to pop a wheelie yet. It slacked the front suspension, but it's going there, and it's already a problem. You want the car to pick up the nose, apply the weight to the rear tire, and in a controlled manner, bring its nose down. And you use the front suspension to tune the way the car rotates and applies that rear tire weight. So wheelie, bad. Waste energy, can be destructive to the car and suspension. We don't want that. The car will eventually want to wheelie at some point, actually wheelie, and we want to control that now. So enough explaining that. Let's go take some measurements and get these things on. All right, so what do we need to measure? We need to measure what the current ride height of the car is, because I'd like to preserve that. I'm going to go down the center of the wheel. Wheel straight, tape measure on here, we're at 27.5. Now, I already measured the other side, and we're closer to 27.25. There's around about a 1/4 inch difference between the two sides, and that's probably because the cement rakes this way a little bit. That's okay. We know we need to be ballpark once the coilovers are adjusted between 27.5 and 27.25. The car will go get an alignment after this, though we're going to try to get pretty darn close here. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is to take a measurement of how long the stock struts will travel whenever we lift the nose of the car. So I'm not going to pick the car up off the ground. I'm just going to pick it up until we reach maximum extension, and then we're going to take a measurement. And that's just for your purposes, because the coilovers are supposed to have around about 9 inches of travel, which is the whole point of this, is trying to control that front wheel for longer and keep the weight on the rear tire and stop it from porpoising. That's what that's called. Whenever the car gets up on the tire and immediately nosedive again, kind of like a dolphin or a porpoise swimming through water. So let's pick up the nose and measure that. Whoa, is that foreshadowing of things to come in the future? Hopefully not. Now that the front end is up nice and high for me to get that Swaybar out, let's take this measurement. Right around 5.5 inches, fully limited out. So next thing you're going to see me do is pull the wheels off. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Boom. Now next, caliper off. Boom. Just like that. Brake caliper is off. Now I always keep some of these trampoline springs from hurricanes past where they just end up scattered in the yard everywhere, laying around, because they are great for this sort of thing, like suspending the caliper. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this strut assembly out, and we'll bring in the coilover. All right, strut with the Steeda drag springs laying on the ground here. I'd like to say that if you'd like more information about how to take apart your front suspension or all the suspension, because we installed Steeda drag springs on this car, I have a video in my S650 playlist that has just that in there, so go check that out. I'd like to say I've also got the Swaybar laying right there because I need to take this Swaybar out. Now, let's talk about that. Oh my God, JB is going to drive his brand new $50,000 car without a sway bar on it. He's going to die. He's going to kill somebody else. No. Will my car handle like some purebred performance car after losing its front sway bar? No, it will not. It will not take turns as flat as it used to. Now, that's a personal choice. I want this car to go faster in a straight line. Removing the sway bar means that the nose is going to react faster and more evenly. Yes, you could leave the sway bar in and disconnect the end links, which is something I've not done up until attempting to remove it at this point. But the coilovers that I spec'd out for this car long travels are for race car things, and they have no provisions for the front sway bar. Now, is it dangerous? No. Does it mean when you're doing 80 mile an hour down the highway, you probably shouldn't yank on the steering wheel as hard as possible one direction and then back the other direction? Yeah, but let me be clear here. This car is lowered about 3/4 of an inch and has very stiff springs back there for drag racing. Due to that, the car is not naturally going to want to move around much, as well as the front springs are going to be pretty stiff. So that goes into this. Now, soon, I'm also going to put a drag racing sway bar in the rear, which is going to stiffen up the rear further and help control the amount that the body can roll. All that being said, I am not putting skinnies on the front of this car. Not anytime soon, and maybe not ever. I'm considering just putting some really light forged 18-inch wheels, 8-inch wide on the front, along with a wider rim in the back, and leaving it alone because I don't like driving on skinnies, track or otherwise. So this car will be perfectly safe. Will it require attention from the driver to know better? Yes, I know better. Your results may vary. It's wholly up to you to determine whether or not this is legal where you are and whether or not you're competent enough to drive it this way. Now, getting that sway bar out is going to be a bit of a pain. Focus, will you? There's a bolt right here looking through the engine bay. See, I'm looking through the engine bay. And then there's another one over there behind this radiator hose that you can't really see. You see down there, big guy. So I'm going to take these two out. And then before I put the coilover here, obviously I have more room and ability to move the hub assembly around. I'm going to snake that sway bar out. Now, the car either needs to be on a lift or really high off the ground with plenty of room to maneuver to snake that bar out. It kind of ends up coming out sideways like this through the opening. So let's go ahead and get you to the point to where I'm trying to pull it out. And boom, there it is. You can see that how it's looping under the car like that. It's got to basically have enough room to go all the way around and slip out. This sucker is heavy. They obviously went heavier with the S650s than in the previous generation. Whew. I'd have to say that that's probably almost 30 pounds. Let's call it 25. Very heavy. You can hear the thump. A suggestion is that I pulled it out on the opposite side, obviously. Start here first, carefully twisting the bar and moving it forward because you got to get around that brake line right there to get it out. Once you twist it and you get it under the frame right here and then beyond that brake line, then you can go to the other side and twist down and start curving in and under the body and just check in the engine bay, make sure you're not hurting the fan or the front pulleys, and it'll twist right on out of there. All right, if you get yourself a set of these from Kelly, it's going to say D, you know, because 9 inches worth, driver's side, and then out. And then he's got a pair of dots right there. And those dots align with the dots on the slip bracketry for camber plating that is right here. So this, of course, it actually goes under like that. And of course, nuts come off and these go through the holes and it gets fitted in the car. I'm gonna show you that in just a minute. This is very important to pay attention to driver's side. This earlobe should face out towards you, and then align the dots on the bracketries so everything is supported from behind. All right, so you can see here, we got the stud sticking up through with the washer and then the nut, and then I've got the strut more or less centered in here. This is loose, a couple threads off. And if I look up in here, you can see that rear supporting bracket is in here going up through the strut. You might want 2 sets of hands because it's a little difficult and heavy to do with one person, but you can see here that this allows for a large camber adjustment from the top rather than from the bottom. So all we have to do is get close here, and then the rest of it can be managed from the strut tower. And just like that, we've got a coilover installed from top to bottom. Now, I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process on the other side, and then we're going to have to set the car down and attempt to adjust camber as well as ride height. This is going to be a little finicky because the car's going to have to come up and down constantly, and I'm going to make adjustments, so on and so forth. But I can tell you, I had to push this hub down a lot to get these bolts to go in. So there's already, I mean, just look at, there's a tremendous amount of extension here. I know the camera doesn't show it well, but there's definitely a lot more here now. Of course, we'll lose some of that whenever we shrink the ride height a bit, because I think we're gonna have to come down probably 1/4 to 1/2 inch. This looks to be closer to stock height. And I did, using a level and a angle finder, figure out that we have about 1 degree to 1.5 degrees of negative camber in the car from its last alignment. I should be able to put that back pretty close. And just like that, I've got a coilover in on the other side. Now you might be wondering, there's no bracket here to hold that upper ABS lead clipped in. I will figure out a way to deal with this once we've got the level of the car sorted out. Usually, like I've done this on 4x4s, you can put like a stretchy band between these two, or a small spring that kind of pulls it away from the strut to make sure it never tries to touch. But I may also just be able to bend this bracket. Your results may vary because it can depend on your ride height. So just be aware that you need to deal with that. All right, so the wheels need to go back on to get a measurement here. Let's get that done. Boom. And just like that, the wheels are on. And look at the difference. You don't even need a tape measure. But just for reference, it was 5.5 inches before, and it is now, let me get this on the edge, 8.5 inches. So we gained 3 inches of extension on the suspension, which will allow us to keep the front wheels planted and weight control under control on those rear wheels. Yes, because I'm an idiot who likes to race on hard tire. So the next bit is more challenging. I've got the camber plate up top set a little bit inside of perfectly in the middle. In fact, I've kind of just got it lined up with that ledge right here and hoping that it'll be close enough. It is for now, for sure. I need to set the car down and measure my current ride height in the front compared to what it was before, and then make adjustments on the coilovers. This is going to take a while. I might show you a little bit of it, but more or less, I've got some wrenches I have to use to break these nuts loose. They come with the coilovers, and it allows me to shift the coilover on the spring on the body to raise or lower that wheel. So let me get the ride height adjusted. In fact, I might just show you what it looks like on the ground. All right, there it is sitting on the ground. Now the nose is too low, and I just had a quick conversation with Kelly to ensure what the correct geometry needed to be here. The rear is right around 14.25 from the center of the wheel to the fender, and I need to be at a slight rake to the front, and Kelly gave me some very specifics on that. I'm gonna withhold that information unless you buy his product, but I'm going to now level the car with a slight rake to the front just right by adjusting the coilovers. All right, so I need to extend the length of this by about 1/2 inch. So you can see here I've got the backing nut backed off, and then this wrench hooks into this nut and allows me to make an upward or downward movement with the strut body. I'm going to measure out 1/2 inch more and then put the wheel back on and set the car down and see where it's at. So I already know what's on your mind. JB proved to us that without a front sway bar, you won't die. That's a 45. Let's go a little faster. 60. Does the car wiggle more? Yes. Can I be really, really aggressive and it's fine? Yes. You can tell that the rear wheels are doing substantially more work to control the body roll. But it's fine. It's safe. You just have to be reminiscent of the fact that if you absolutely throw the car, it's going to throw you. But even then, big wheels, it ought to be fine. There's definitely a large difference in the way that the car pitches its weight. It definitely wants to roll back harder, but I'm on a street tire on the street, and it just realistically is not enough for this car. So at some point I'm gonna have to put a drag radial on this car if I want it to hook really well on the street. What we need to know is what this does at the track, and that's what I'm going to get you as soon as possible. Are y'all ready for the money shot? Watch this. And yes, those wheels are touching very barely, just barely rubbing the concrete. Oh gosh. Yeah, I say they're gonna stay on the ground for plenty longer now. Nice. Well, that's pretty wild. Big shout out to Kelly Aiken with these Kelltrac Long Travel front shocks. They are insane. The installation was super easy. You end up taking a good bit of weight off the nose by removing the sway bar. No big difference there in the handling characteristics of the car, other than if you really yank into it one direction and pull it the other, it definitely floats. But once I get that stiffer rear sway bar on there, I have a lot of difficulty telling that the front sway bar is missing. Just look at this insanity. Well, the street tire just can't hook on the street. I kind of hope that it would try with the new front shocks, but it doesn't even begin to hook, which means the suspension can't do its job. So drag radials needed for the street. But we're going to go to the track soon, and I'm going to get y'all some killer footage of trying to stretch out my Buick's suspension all the way until it's slacked out. Regardless, thank y'all so much for watching the video. We love y'all. God bless. Peace.